Greetings viewers, Eric the Car Guy here, also known as ETCG1. And yes, on this channel, if it is your birthday, I like to wish you a happy birthday. We'll throw in very special. We've changed locations. We're outside today because it is a stellar, gorgeous day, and you don't get too many of these where I'm at in Cincinnati. But it is actually the day after I posted the video about what I wanted to do with the GSR. I posted a couple of my ideas. Well, I pitched to you a couple of my ideas, either doing a Type R clone or keeping it all original. And the response, quite frankly, was overwhelming. So much so that I just decided to make a response video rather than to try to respond to the more than 2,000 comments now, I think. But thank you for that. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you for the participation and your ideas. They ranged from everything from keep it stock, which is what I was thinking, to like put an LS in it. In fact, a lot of people have made suggestions. And this is very telling to me. It says that there's a lot of interest in these cars and this car in particular. The more I think about it, the more I think that this car needs to stay original, or as original as possible without going too far over the line. And I say that because many of you brought this up. It's a survivor. I mean, just try and find a GSR that hasn't been worked over already. I mean, the ones that are out there most times have, had lowering kits or exhaust systems or, modifications done to the engine. They've been beat to heck and gone. There's not a whole lot left. Having a car like this that was one owner, I've known it all its life. I was there when it came out, when it was born, when it came off the truck. So it would just, to me, it would seem like a real shame to turn this car into something any other than what the factory intended. And I think over time, its value will increase as a result of that, as a result of keeping it stock. Now, I've done most of the mechanical things on this car. I mean, I've already done the video. In fact, I posted links in the description to the last video, and I will to this one as well. I fixed the antenna, I pulled the front bumper off. The license plate bolts on these things tend to get rusty and cause problems. I fixed that, reconditioned the headlights already, fixed the rear latch for the hatchback, and outside of an occasional ABS light that comes on from time to time, which is probably a speed sensor, mechanically, this thing is in really good shape. Maybe a small oil leak on a cam seal. Where it really needs help is in the body. There's a little bit of rust in the back that needs attention. Also, this car just wasn't really washed and taken care of that often. It wasn't abused, but it was neglected. So there's a lot of cosmetic things that need to be done. So there's some things to explore there. But my channel is basically based around repair and most recently modification. A few of you suggested that I give this car away, and I'm not opposed to giving a car away at some point. I've already had thoughts along those lines, and I'm not ready to talk about that yet. This is not the car I want to give away, though. I mean, I literally waited for this car 15 years. I've wanted one of these. Like I said, I'm a fan of Integras. I said this in the last video. Big fan of Integras, always have been, and to me, it feels right to have one in the fleet. And some of you pointed out my fleet is getting quite large. Well, I have plans for all of them, and they're not all for me. I'm going to spread it around a bit. I agree, I don't need this many vehicles. But first and foremost, and then we're all tired of hearing about it, is finishing that Fairmont. I'm more than ready to be done with that car. And here's the thing, the next project car that I get involved with, I don't want to go to the level that I'm going with the Fairmont. The Fairmont was meant to be a quick and easy project, and it turned into something much, much more. I think the finished product will be amazing, but I do realize that that has taken up an inordinate amount of my time and a lot of videos I post. So for the next project car, I don't want to be as deep. And if I do my upgrades, I think I'll do them one at a time instead of a complete tear down to nothing and then back up. Do it in incremental steps. That being said, if nothing else, what I learned from posting that video last week about what to do with the GSR is that there's a tremendous amount of interest there in these cars and modifications of these cars, whether they be right or not right. Also, there seems to be a lot of interest in the knowledge that I have about them. And for those of you not familiar, I worked at the Acura dealership for a total of 8 years. And outside of that, I worked at an independent shop for a few years, working on mainly Hondas and Acuras. So I'm very familiar with these vehicles, especially of this vintage. As I said, I've seen a lot of them that, for lack of a better word, that have just been butchered. And now this was 2001, the last year they made these. So now we're 16 years on, And what was out there was, there wasn't a lot out there to begin with, and now there's even less after, you know, they've either been wrecked or anything like that. I think as far as a Type R goes, to try to make this car into a Type R would just be, you know, more getting into that Fairmont world where it just is a never-ending project. I mean, I'd want to go so far as to delete the sunroof and, you know, make it look as close to a Type R as I could possibly make it. But since there is such an interest in modifying Hondas of this vintage, and it doesn't necessarily have to be an Integra, maybe I'll find one and see what I could do to play with a little bit. But as far as this one, we're going to keep this one stock. As far as Type Rs, I'd rather just start with a Type R if I'm able to find one, you know, because they're unicorns now. I mean, a viewer sent me a link to one that there was an auction out of Canada. It got out of my price range, but basically it ended up being like 25 or 26,000 for a car that was a 2001. So it's almost what you paid for the thing new. In fact, I think that is what you paid for it new, somewhere around there. I knew it was somewhere in the near 20 that you would buy one of them new. Point is, I think if I were going to do a Type R, I'd rather have a Type R. And if the Type R was like an original Type R, I'd do what I could to keep it original. But if it was a Type R that had been raced or already modified, I wouldn't have any trouble modifying it or tweaking it or whatever. What I learned was that you have a lot of interest in these vehicles, a lot more than the Fairmont, and I get that. But that's why I'll close this one out. I really want to thank everybody for your contributions and your suggestions and all those comments. And like I said, I became completely overwhelmed with those comments, and I'm just like, there's no way. They're just coming, I mean, every second it seemed like there was new comments being posted, which is great. But it's a little difficult to sit there for hours and hours trying to respond to each of those comments. It seemed like the best way to do that was with this video. So forgive me for revisiting the subject again for another week, but as I said, it seems you have a lot of interest in it. If you have automotive questions, I ask you head to ericthecarguy.com. I'll put a link to that in the description, along with links to additional information and other videos that pertain to this GSR, as I mentioned. Outside of that, be safe, have fun, stay dirty. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.